For Sunday, November 19th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, the runoff heats up in the Atlanta mayor's race. Taxes will dominate the issue for Fulton County Commission chair, and Congress passes a tax cut for all of us. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
We're glad you could be with us on this Thanksgiving week. This is the week that gets shorter with every passing year. Schools used to be out on Friday, and now they're off on Wednesday and Tuesday, and some places they're off all week, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and the work week has taken its toll as a result of that, but we're here, we're ready to rock. Yeah. And we've got the runoff between Keisha Lance Bottoms. Is it okay if we occasionally say KLB just to shorthand it?
Oh, once she's mayor.
And and Mary Norwood, who doesn't, that name is easily digested. And they've had their first debate. It was on Public Broadcasting Atlanta this week. And Keisha Lance Bottoms went after Mary Norwood, which is unusual because Mary's background is not the kind that you know, she's an independent at City Hall. So it was interesting to hear her attacked that way and to hear her responses. But I think Mary Norwood, Phil, went to the heart of her case against Keisha Lance Bottoms, which is her ties to Kasim Reed and the airport corruption, which the U.S. attorney says is prolific.
I thought she did too, and I think that public safety and corruption have been Mary Norwood's themes, and rightly so, of course, transportation and others. But I think she laid it out clearly toward Keisha Lance Bottoms, who kind of looked like she had a deer in the headlights look at that point when Bottoms said, you know, I'm going to kind of basically keep the same procurement system. No, we want reform. We want reform.
Come on,
she's not for the moratorium that Mary Norwood is on the contracts.
Why are we talking about a moratorium in mid-November when the mayor leaves in January?
Because there's a corruption
You're talking about No.
There is a corruption.
No, there's smoke and mirrors. That's what there is.
Please.
And actually, I think that Keisha Lance Bottoms comported herself very well. And she pointed out some of the ethical lapses that Mary Norwood has experienced and that people just don't want to talk about, including the fact that we really don't know where she comes down politically. This is a Democratic city. Do you want a Republican mayor who is cozying up to Donald Trump?
She is no Republican or cozying up to Trump.
Well, she clearly said that she's an independent who's voted for Republicans in the past.
But she voted for Hillary Clinton. To be able to say that's reason enough for me not to vote for her.
Well, there you go. Well, you should. Well, there are other reasons as well.
Earth to Jeff. It's a nonpartisan election.
Really? No, it isn't. Let me tell you, it's not.
It's a nonpartisan election in a partisan town.
At least for 44 years, it hadn't been a nonpartisan election.
All our municipal elections are nonpartisan in this state.
Atlanta is a blue island in a red state.
And in, for example, Dunwoody and Sandy Springs, we don't know what party.
But a mayor, just like Kasim Reed has worked with the White House when he has been mayor, a mayor has to work with the federal government and the White House. There's nothing wrong with someone going across party lines or racial lines when they're mayor. This has happened before. Don't freak out over this Trump nonsense. She's not a Trump Republican. It's absurd.
I think that when Keisha Lance Bottoms talked about her giving business to her own business from the city council, that's a point.
Jeff, that was knocked down. That was knocked down as totally erroneous. You're talking about Mary Norwood.
Are you talking about Mary Norwood?
I'm talking about Mary Norwood retaining her own firm to do robocalls and other work while she's at City Hall, while she's a city council person.
Jeff, you're distorting that.
No, it's not distorted. It's something that's happened time and again, and she didn't deny it during the debate.
She has issued a statement clearly saying that a lot of that happened before she was on council, and then it faded out when she was on council. But you have no
faded out. What do you mean faded out? You sound like Roy Moore talking about not generally.
Oh, listen to this.
Come on.
What does Roy Moore
Either
have
she
to do
did
with
it or
this?
she didn't.
You always defend all of your vendor friends at the airport, and you jump on Mary Norwood. That's ridiculous.
When and if Roy Moore was an old lech, he was a Democrat. Let's make that very clear.
That's funny.
If it's true.
I don't know why we even talking about Roy Moore. We're talking about corruption.
Let me turn to Alexis. Aren't you troubled, though? You know the system is somewhat corrupt.
I don't know the system is somewhat corrupt.
Thank you.
I know
the
that
US
there have
attorney
been some,
says it is.
there have been
4
some
people
corrupt
have been-
actors.
Why
but
hasn't the U.S.
system-
attorney produced an indictment?
How about the procurement
One.
officer
There
who's
have
going
been-
to jail? A procurement officer from City Hall
That's what I
is
said.
going to
I
jail.
agree. There have been some corrupt
Oh,
actors.
There
thank
have
you.
But
been
the
some
system
Lance
actors.
itself-
Bottoms' contributions are top-heavy.
And she
from
sent the ones back that were questionable.
Airport contractors. She did send a few back, that's right. But she's still top-heavy with airport contractors making contributions to her campaign. She is seen as the direct successor to Kasim Reed.
Yes.
Now, this end of the table argues that that has been somewhat corrupt, a terrific administration, and we don't know that we haven't got to the bottom of the corruption part yet, right?
We are. We're getting there.
I think we're getting there.
But it's not the system. It's people who betray the system.
Alexis, you and I have talked about, and Jeff and Dick, we've all talked about 30 plus years of corruption, especially at the airport. It's wrong to have the procurement and the contracts under a mayor. That is just a
And where would you
recipe
have it?
for
Authority.
abuse.
We'd have an airport
authority.
Oh,
and
that's
that
what
came
you
up
wanted.
during the debate, if you saw that
Yes,
during the
I did.
debate.
I did.
And I tell you what, Keisha Lance Bottoms does not want to change anything. She's going to keep the
I'm
same
gonna tell you
procurement
what.
system.
Folks have been, conservatives in this town have been trying to get the airport out of the hands of a black-run administration.
Liberals
in
have done
Atlanta
it.
for 4 decades.
You know, Common Cause.
And the fact of the
Common
matter
Cause
is,
has
it
been a
is
leader.
well-run airport. It's one of the best-run airports in the world.
That's not the point.
Dick just said
That's
that
not
this
the
has
point.
been an excellent administration. I agree with you. It
We haven't got
has.
to the bottom of it yet, though.
The fact of the matter is that you've had a well-run, efficient, clean airport, and if Kasim Reed were a white conservative, you'd be building a statue of him in the town
That's
square.
absurd. Jeff, everybody agrees it's a well-run airport. You don't want to talk
It's a
about
well-run
the
airport.
contracting.
It's a well-run administration.
You don't want to talk about the contracting. To heck with being a well-run airport. That's not even the issue.
Well,
And you
look-
admit that it's a well-run administration?
No, I'm not going as far as Dick is. I think there's been
You'll
some serious problems.
you'll admit that we've
Oh, I'm
had
talking about the
multiple-
mayor?
Did you know
Don't
this?
talk about the mayor.
I'm talking about the mayor.
Okay.
Did
You want to talk about crime and how the murder rate and shootings are up?
You
and
want to
public
talk?
safety?
You want to talk about the budget and how there hadn't been
Let's
a
talk
tax
politics.
increase in 8 years?
Okay.
Let's talk politics. Let's
Okay.
talk politics. Fascinating story in the AJC, a piece of analysis about how the vote went in the first go-round.
Yes.
And that the white vote outperformed the black vote.
Yes.
You remember a week ago I read the stats, how close the two were.
Right.
I thought that was just a really interesting read. And that leads us to the question of what does Kathy Woolard do? She ended up with 17%.
Right.
Yes.
She came late. She got late to the party, but she did very well.
Right.
I guess she's going to put, it's my impression she's going to put Keisha Lance Bottoms and Mary Norwood into sort of a little public dance as to whom she will support. Kwanzaa Hall came out for Keisha Lance Bottoms this week.
You know, there were some really substance-laden candidates in this campaign, and I think that Kathy Woolard was one of them. And she would like to see the 2 remaining candidates address some of the issues that were important to her and her
housing.
supporters. She's asked them to do so. They have both agreed to do so. Affordable housing, transportation, any
Beltline.
number of issues. Exactly, the Beltline.
But no
Any
transportation on the
number-
Beltline, only bicycles and pedestrians.
Well, that's transportation on the Beltline. See, if you're walking, that's actually a form of transportation.
right.
Dick, did you see where Bottoms wants to expand the streetcar that no one
She
is
does.
riding?
No, she didn't say that. She said,
Yes, she did. Yes, she
Yes,
did.
she did.
If you heard her.
Did you hear the debate?
I did, and she said that's one aspect. She'd rather see transportation go further south and further
Let's
west.
forget about the
Wait a
streetcar.
minute. The streetcar
But the streetcar is
Wouldn't that
right
be
now
expanding
is
the
not
streetcar?
useful.
is
She
supposed
said
to
that.
be expanded. There's never been any thought that the streetcar was going to just stay the way it was.
How about if we do a
Right
study?
now, it's a tourist attraction
Right.
that goes from
From the King
one
Center.
major tourist center.
We have to get out.
To Centennial Park.
From Centennial Park to the King
And
Center, another tourist
no one is
attraction.
riding it.
We have-
And it's supposed to be extended.
We have
no
to get
one
out.
is she
No
wants
one
to
is-
extend it. Of course she wants to
And
extend
no one
it.
is paying for it.
There's a drinking game on Facebook where a guy takes a drink every time you shout. I think
Oh,
that's
really?
sort of interesting, yeah.
Oh, wow, good for him.
He may
What is he
He may
drinking?
be drunk already.
What is
He
he
doesn't know it's
drinking?
8:30 in the morning, who knows? All right, when we come back, we'll talk about another Keisha, she of the tax problem. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And don't forget to join us on Facebook. And remember, we have our own YouTube channel, The Georgia Gang, on YouTube. A couple of election footnotes. I'm somewhat mystified as to, I know that we don't generally dwell on city council races, but the race between Michael Bond, old school, and Courtney English, new school, chairman of the school board, was the headliner among city council races in Atlanta. And I don't know if there's going to be a runoff or not. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, it's so
Neither
bizarre.
candidate got 49% if you count the runoffs.
Well, they
if you
both
count
got
the write-ins.
49%.
Yeah.
Neither one got 50+1. And the reason why is they were very, very close, a couple hundred votes
Yeah,
apart, if I'm not
right,
mistaken. But
right.
there were 421 write-in votes for non-certified write-in candidates, right? And so the question is, do you have a race with two people where one of them should be able to get 50+1 and essentially ignore those 421 votes, or does this end it into a runoff? At first, Courtney English asked for a recount and then said, no, we should have a runoff. But it seems to me that they should have a recount without the 421 votes counted.
Yeah, and
Who
I
decides
agree
this?
with, well, here's the problem.
Seems like
Well, the
it's
Board of
option-
Elections is going to have to decide it.
automatic
And then
recount.
to just finish Jeff's point, Richard Barron, the Fulton Elections Director, says, oh, gee, I screwed up. I shouldn't have counted those write-in votes. Well, again, more dysfunction with this Fulton election system.
All right, let's turn to the race for Fulton. Let's stay right in Fulton County. The race for Fulton County Commission Chair. It's a special election to replace John Eves. It has gone to a runoff. The Republican, oddly, did not make the runoff in a county that's got a lot of Republicans. And the
it's got a lot
runoff
of
is
Democrats.
between Rob Pitts, the former president of the Atlanta City Council, and Keisha Waits, who's a state legislator. I posit, for argument's sake, that she's in the runoff because her first name is Keisha.
She might have picked up a
If
couple
her name had been
points.
Sally,
Might have.
if her
Right.
name had been Sally, she'd have been third.
There was some confusion.
But
Well,
Keisha
no,
Waits.
Sally Waits is too close to Sally Yates. So she still would
So
have
we're
done
still
well.
confused.
If her name had been Griselda. But Phil, I turn to you.
Yeah, then.
I turn to you because Keisha Waits is not a proper candidate.
Well, and I think the reason you're saying that is her tax problem. She's in the past written bad checks. She has not paid back taxes. She claimed she had a deal with Arthur Ferdinand's office, the tax commissioner's office, to do repayment. The tax commissioner's office says no, she doesn't. So this is just very disgraceful.
To be blunt, she has 84 property tax liens, and she owes $24,000.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, really, can you go to work for the county as a commission chairman when you owe the county all that money?
You know, the bigger issue, of course, is that she's up against a candidate by the name of Rob Pitts that everybody knows and has got widespread support around the county, has a lot of support in the north end of the county, and is likely to win this race.
And,
I think that the other surprising thing there was that you ended up with two Democrats in the runoff instead of the Republican, because we've
that's
seen
what I
that in the
was trying to say.
past.
That's what I was
Seen it.
trying to say.
It's low turnout. I think we have to remind the
Yeah.
viewers that these are very tricky elections with low turnout, and it's disgraceful.
Yeah,
Well, let's
that's what
stay
I was
right
going to
there.
say. The turnout was low in the general election, but I think it's because there were so many qualified candidates. People said, I can't make up my mind. I don't know who to vote for.
There's some evidence
and
of
some
that.
people, I think, stayed
I think
home.
you're right.
I do think politically that Buckhead will be the key, the business district of Atlanta, because to your point, Rob Pitts has always been pretty strong there with both black and,
inner
white
Sandy
voters.
Springs, too. And inner Sandy Springs.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that helps Mary Norwood, too, with that vote being pumped up for Pitts.
Let's stay
And
right there, Phil,
what-
because you're in inner Sandy Springs. That's inside the perimeter of Sandy Springs.
Right.
And your state Senate seat is going to go to a Democrat. And you predicted, I congratulate you, you said last week that we need primaries. And Josh McCune, the state senator, proposed that almost immediately.
Right, that's right. We need
special
partisan
elections?
primaries. We need 4 special elections. We need to have it partisan so that both parties can have their nominee, and there won't be this fact that this district, which voted Republican, ended up with 2 Democrats in a runoff.
Yeah, the Republicans got the majority of the votes in
That's
that
why
race.
that spurred it.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that there's a nonpartisan race for the city of Atlanta, and we had all these Democrats running, and you ended up with a non-Democrat
I
person in
thought
the
you
runoff.
said it wasn't a nonpartisan race.
It wasn't. That's what I'm saying. That's the whole point. And
Well,
you're saying the same thing.
I am.
McCune
And
is, I
so
think.
I would think you would support Josh McCune for
I
the
don't.
record. Oh,
I mean, why would you? I mean, let it be what it is.
Good.
Well, I think both parties have a right to pick their nominees. That's the point.
For the record, another Republican got into the governor's race for 2018. A businessman from Cobb County named Clay Tippins, a former Navy SEAL. Did anyone notice?
Well, we did a piece on Insider Advantage. I thought it could be a better rollout if I was, giving free advice here. He did say that he was going to tell us about some of his issues. He's still working on them. I would have just told the issues right then and there and made a splash. But he's the 5th candidate to be in the GOP primary, and he's raised some money. So whenever, we all know this, whenever someone has money, they're a player.
Well, Tippins will also kind of muddy the waters with the military type vote, because he's a former Navy SEAL. Hunter Hill is a former Army Ranger and a West Point
Another
graduate.
GOP candidate.
Two of the GOP candidates. Just an interesting little tidbit. The recall campaign has begun against Secretary of State Brian Kemp. Do we need to say any more?
No.
Because it's not going to happen.
He's going to be leaving office anyway, so it's going to be a waste of time.
And here's two more nothing will happen stories, because we got to get out.
Well,
Mary Margaret Oliver of Decatur has introduced a bill for local control of monuments and tributes.
I think that could happen. I think that could happen. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot. I think that there's a lot of sentiment among localities across the state to be able to deal with that issue. And it's a way, and we've seen the General Assembly do this so many times, to just throw the issue back to the locals when they don't want to.
They took it away from the locals for Stone Mountain.
When they want to get rid of a hot
Right.
potato, and this is one.
I would say this, and even among the African American community, there's an interesting debate going on. Do we keep some of these monuments, especially if they're memorials to the dead, which are different from, say, street names?
Yeah, no, you're exactly
And
right.
so
There's a
I think,
tremendous amount of
I
debate
think
around that.
there's a backlash against liberals wanting to erase history.
We have to get
but
out.
it's not what it's about. It's not about erasing history. It's about setting history straight. And
Well, then you can put it
correcting
in
the record.
context. but
Exactly.
Don't try to blow up Stone Mountain like I guess Stacey Abrams wants.
The other
Well,
bill that
she
has
doesn't
no
wanna do
chance for
that.
Mary Margaret Oliver, and I like her a lot, but it is not going to happen. She wants to ban bump stocks from a
I thought that's what
semi-assault.
you
I mean,
We're
that's a
gonna talk about-
no-brainer. Everybody should want to do that
Yeah.
after Las Vegas.
Chance of it passing?
I think, I don't know, because I agree with the NRA. That ought to be looked at. I don't like bump stocks.
No, I don't either, but I just
Yeah.
don't think it'll pass. Congress isn't doing anything with it. All right, when we come back, we're going to turn to Congress because it affects all of us. We've got two major pieces of legislation: the tax cuts that affect everyone, and then the defense bill, which turned out to be a boon for Georgia. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
While the drama in Washington seems to be all about Roy Moore in Alabama, the real work of the Congress is going on as we head toward their Thanksgiving break. The House on Thursday finally passed a tax reform bill, a tax cut
bill.
tax cut, tax reform, and simplification.
Okay.
And the Senate has yet to vote, and their effort is to vote before Thursday, before Thanksgiving.
No,
Probably won't happen. It'll be pushed into December. Don't even know if it'll pass the Senate. But at least the House has delivered, Phil, and it's the sort of tax plan that Jeff used to write eloquent editorials in support of.
That's right.
Because it simplifies rates. It simplifies the whole process.
Yeah, I
cuts
also
it down to 3 tax rates.
I also wrote eloquent editorials against the debt and the deficit, and this adds $1.5 trillion to the federal debt, and it's just irresponsible. And it shows again that there's no difference between liberals and conservatives in Congress when it comes to trying to get elected, right, and get reelected, and to give folks a tax cut in order to do so.
Well,
and
you're
it's fundamentally irresponsible and wrong. We are passing on to future generations our little wants and needs today, and shouldering them with a bill.
Well, the rest of the story is something you didn't say, that these cuts and the simplification of a out-of-control tax code, which both parties admit, will stimulate growth. We've seen this before in the 1980s. Well, we saw it in the 1980s with the tax cuts and simplifications and the lowering of the classification. So go back on your history.
We saw the debt and the deficit balloon under Ronald Reagan when he
Congress
did
cut
the
no
exact
spending.
same thing.
And we had
to have Bill Clinton come in and get it under control.
And then
now it's out of control again, and you've got these folks, these so-called conservatives, passing on these incredible bills to your grandkids.
And
I think static analysis.
And I think
eliminating
we
the
will see
mandate
something
for
pass
healthcare.
because the polls show that people do want some cuts and tax
The
simplification.
biggest thing is the lower corporate tax rate. Now, first of all, corporations shouldn't even be taxed because they just pass
I would
it
hope
on.
you'd be in favor of lowering the corporate tax
lowering
rate.
the
That would
corporate
really
tax rate to
stimulate the
20%.
economy.
None of
You
those
used to write about that.
corporations
Get it.
pay it anyway. They all have their lawyers and their accountants and their attorneys to pay the
It will
minimal.
stop what I thought
be
you
less than
opposed.
what they're
It
doing.
would stop the countries going overseas, these companies going overseas.
Why would it stop that?
Because they can stay here while they have more money. In
They can
Well,
move
they have
actually
even
8
more
trillion.
money
Well,
if
the
they
fact of
stay
the matter is
overseas.
that you already have one Republican senator, and you only have 2 votes in the Senate. You already have one who is very concerned because it's just a corporate tax cut. It doesn't affect tax rates all that much where the job creation
We
occurs,
have to
and
get
that's
out.
in small business.
we're looking,
Right.
we're looking at a process. It's not finished yet. This is what's called negotiations that are going
It
on.
also eliminates deductions for college loans and tuitions. It also eliminates deductions for
But it
medical
also-
expenses.
it almost
they're
doubles the
negotiating.
standard
Local property
deduction.
taxes,
They're
local
Local
sales
property,
taxes.
yeah.
It doubles the standard deduction. Let's switch gears here. We can talk about that in our Thanksgiving broadcast, but I do want to point out the defense bill has passed the House and Senate.
Right.
And as David Perdue, who was a conferee on that thing, he said his 30 priorities all got through. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well,
That is
and every
That's right.
major program in Georgia benefits. Lockheed,
That's exactly right.
Robbins Air Force
Fort
Base.
Gordon, every post, we're getting more money for cyber. We're going to be building that Hercules aircraft at Dobbins. We may open that up to non-military flights at Dobbins. It passed the Senate unanimously, and I think senators realized under the Obama administration we had cut far too much.
That was
you're
the
right.
sequestration done by the Republican Congress.
It was vetoed by Barack Obama on defense budgets. You
Well,
forgot about
Yeah,
that.
sequestration isn't even legal in Alabama. All right, when we come back, we're going to pick for you our winners and losers. Stay with us.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And for that, we'll begin with you, Jeffrey.
Well, happy Thanksgiving and happy Black Friday and all of that, but that's the only winner I've got. The rest are all losers. Mark Adger, the chief jailer over at the Fulton County Jail, threw the Morehouse School of Medicine under the bus for 3 deaths, 3 of which were suicides and on his watch, not the medical providers. Not only that, Morehouse School of Medicine was providing no more than 12% of the medical care there. It was another firm that was providing the bulk of the care. It was a terrible and irresponsible thing for him to do. He's loser of the week. The other one, of course, is, and I got to do this weekly, I guess now, is the 11th commandment. And the 11th commandment ought to be, thou shalt not date girls when you have to ask their mothers for their permission.
Exactly.
Actually, I grew up in an era when girls of any age had to ask permission. But
Well, yeah, well,
Anyway.
when you're 35 and the girl is 16,
You shouldn't
You
be doing
shouldn't
that at all.
be dating her
That's
at all.
not even called dating.
okay,
yeah.
Alexis, what do you have?
Okay, I want to congratulate Fulton County Probate Court Judge Pinky Toomer, attorneys Keenan Nix and Andrew Patterson, and posthumously Willie Lovett, who were all inducted into the Gate City Bar Association Hall of Fame. Congratulations to them for their thing there. And oh, I want to make a correction. Last week I said that Sam Burston was the new VP of Institutional Advancement, but he's really the new VP and Chief Advancement Officer. Getchell Caldwell is the VP of Institutional Advancement, so thank you for that.
If you're
And
following
then-
along at home, feel free to make notes.
Yes, I'm sorry. And also, I want to congratulate Maynard Jackson III and Wendy Ely Jackson on the premiere of their documentary on Maynard Jackson,
I
former
wanna
mayor of
see that.
Atlanta.
I
I want
wanna
to see
see
it too.
that.
It's going to be,
Yeah.
it should be good.
Phil.
Well, I'm going to make Mary Norwood the winner of the debate just on points. I don't always agree with her on the issues, but I do think she's got the right issues when it comes to fighting City Hall corruption and public safety. And I want to make the loser Mayor Joe Lockwood over in Milton. I don't know if you saw that story. He, along with 2 councilmen, they did it again. We had another story on this a few weeks ago. They were asking voters to show their vote sticker and their political signs on social media, and they would get free cards, gift cards. Now, come on, that is illegal. Do not do that, please, candidates.
All right, my loser is the city of South Fulton. It's not a big deal, but you know they voted to rename
Change
themselves.
the name.
Renaissance.
They changed the name of the city to Renaissance. I get changing the name. City of South Fulton is confusing, but Renaissance, really? There seems so many
There
other
were some
better
ones.
options.
Yeah, Bear Creek, I think, was one of the
Wolf
options.
Creek.
Wolf Creek, rather. I'm sorry.
That was an Olympic venue. I
yeah,
get that.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
That's fine.
They had some good
My other
options.
loser is Phil. Your Bulldogs
Uh-oh.
did not show up against Auburn.
Yikes.
But if they win out, they can still make the playoffs.
They're still in the SEC championship.
That's right. They get a chance to beat Alabama and still play on beyond that. And a wonderful luncheon this week for Garland Penholster, the legendary coach at Oglethorpe University who brought them a national championship back in the day. He's 90, and it was nice to celebrate with him and to be reminded that this coming year will be the 50th anniversary, as my little pin says, of the Naismith Awards,
Wow.
which I was proud to have been a part of for about 25 years, honoring the best in basketball. And that's what I got. So I end the week on a joyous note. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy
And we'll see you
Thanksgiving.
next week on a special holiday edition of the Georgia Gang. Stay with us.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.